Hello guys, I'm back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Belle was Genji and Hanzo, or Genji and Hanzo's reincarnations. So, in the last video we talked about how during his, whole week of basically doing some missions for, for Loki, it was finally his rest week, which was pretty much rushes to him. Because he couldn't do anything all that much. I mean, he could definitely shop or something, but he was not really into the mood of this, shopping thing right now. So he decides to just decides to maybe go on a date with Loki. Currently with Loki. Loki is currently just at the time, she was not really interested in doing any of work because, a bit of procrastination. And so when she saw Belle, and after hearing that he wants to go on a date with her, she would decide to go on a date with him just because she doesn't want to do any of the paperwork. So after leaving her office, we go to Freya, and Freya was commanding all of her, minions, specifically, the members of the Freya Familia, to basically capture Belle. So she can, have her way with him. And so they would gladly do it, and so would try to find Belle. During their whole date, Belle would basically have a pretty good time until it was basically at, maybe near nighttime. So, Belle would decide to bring her to his apartment again so they can continue their little session last time. And this was, and back then it was an 18 plus scene. So, disclaimer here, it's also 18 plus scene here. So, Izuku would decide to just fully go into it and would basically start, yeah, pretty much that. So, after a while of basically doing basically that, currently with the not Loki, I meant the, Freya Familia members that are trying to plan on basically capturing Belle so she can, so they can bring him to, Freya. Well, currently they're either those bleeding to death or fainting. You can probably guess those two genders specifically. So, after a while of basically, having some fun, Belle would basically finish, are she blowing into her, let's just say cooch. So, after doing that, Loki would decide to basically sleep at his house because, it's completely late at night. So, after doing that, both of them would fully go to sleep in Belle's bed. With Freya right now, Freya was currently, pissed off that, not only did Loki basically stole Belle's first kiss, but also stole, Belle's, V card, which she was not really happy about, and so would ask Ultar, because of the failure of the, her familiar members trying to capture Belle, but they failed because of that, so she would decide to bring in, Ultar to basically try and capture Belle. Basically, he, or she in this case, sorry, she in this case should basically, give him instructions to basically capture Belle, and try and not to get caught by, Loki familiar members, or any type of familiar member. So yeah, after being told of this, he would basically leave, as Freya is planning on doing some stuff with Belle when she does capture him. So yeah, so that is going to be the explanation about what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next to. So, as Belle basically wakes up from his, night of passion with Loki, he would see that Loki is currently sleeping on his chest, pretty much, peacefully. As Belle would say this. My lovely little redhead, he would basically whisper in her ear, as she would say, Morning, Belle. As Belle would say this, can you please get off me? I'm gonna be making dinner for you. As she would say this, sure. So, she would basically start, move away, basically just rolling, as Belle would basically get off the bed and would start making breakfast. So, he would basically grab some eggs in his, magical fridge, and would basically start to make, some simple, scrambled eggs, and, I guess you could say, nearby, he would also find some leftover, steaks, yeah. as he would basically start, grab them and basically start, reheating them and basically chopping them up and would make little, like, steak cubes. After doing that, he would basically put them on the, I guess you can say, like, dining room table, but it's more like a coffee table, as Belle would basically sit down as Loki would fully wake up, thanks to the help of the, delicious aroma from, Belle's breakfast. As she would say, I smell something good, Belle. Did you make it? As Belle would say this, yeah. And please try and wear some clothes, okay? He would basically say with the, cute smile, as Loki would do. So, after changing into, Belle's shirt, which was a bit too baggy for her, and her, simple, like, jean shorts, which are pretty much too short, in fact, as she would basically start to eat with Belle. After a while of eating, they would basically finish up, and Belle would basically tell her that they should probably bring her back home. After doing that, Belle would basically start waiting outside, as Loki would basically, get outside with some of her, dirty clothes from last night, and so they would basically start to leave, going back home to the Loki Familia mansion. After arriving there, currently with the other members, they're basically looking at Loki and her, shirt that he's wearing, like she was wearing, as everybody would start to whisper, saying, wait, is that Belle's shirt? As one of them would say, don't tell me they actually did it. As some of the members are still whispering, as currently with, the main members of the Loki Familia, one of them specifically, Tione is pretty much crying right now, saying, why did I get my chance? She would basically start crying as, Tiona is trying to comfort her. As, Finn is basically proud of Belle, basically giving him a thumbs up. And also the dwarf, I can't remember his name, is also giving him a thumbs up. Leafia is, I guess you can say, flustered thinking about the whole, situation with Belle and also Loki. And Rivia, she doesn't really care. Also, Eyes would not really care either. I mean, she's mostly focusing on, maybe trying to fight Belle. Which she tried talking to him several times, but he was too busy. And currently with, Bet is pretty much fuming, but not as much anymore, because he sort of already knows about the relationship already, so now he's pretty much mellowed out. Sort of, he still wants to fight Belle again. So, after bringing her back to bringing her back to her office, he would basically say goodbye, as she would basically say goodbye to Belle, and blowing him a kiss. After taking the kiss, he would basically blow it right back at her, as she would basically, give off these heart eyes, saying, bye, Belle, as Belle would say this, bye, my lovely little redhead, he would say, as she would basically say, bye, and so Belle would basically, get out of the, Loki Familia mansion, and would start to leave. After putting on his armor, he would decide to go on some missions in the dungeon. So, after arriving at the guild, which everybody's basically still looking at him, and apparently the news spread about, Loki actually banging, Belle, which, let's just say it was currently, like a literal, floodgate, basically. So, as everybody's basically talking about it, everybody would start to look at Belle, as Belle would basically come up to a receptionist, as you would say this. Can I have another mission, please? As one of them would say this. Oh, sure, Mr. Bell Cornell. As the receptionist would basically give him another mission, which apparently is to slay a large monster that's currently blocking one of the entranceways to the 25th floor. So after getting this mission, he would basically say goodbye and would start to go there. So, after arriving at the, dungeon and making it towards the 24th floor, he would basically start to go around trying to find the 25th floor, the 25th floor's entrance. After, while basically walking around the place, he would see some sort of a large monster that resembles some sort of Hydra. Just imagine the Hydra from, actually, no. Just imagine the false Hydra, but except, with normal reptile-like head. Like, normal reptile-like heads. And if you don't know what the hell is the false Hydra, well, look up D&D. And trust me, that thing looks terrifying imagining that. Like, what the fuck? Whoever made that is either insane or just has a horrible mental state. And I fucking love it. Uh, like, just imagine seeing that, okay? So, after seeing this large Hydra-like monster, Bell would basically bring up his bow as he would say this. Alright, Ugly. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. He would basically say, as he would basically he would basically grab two arrows as he would fire them at both of the heads. The heads would be shot in the on the forehead as they would basically start to scream. Mostly the remaining heads. The remaining heads would start shooting out specific elements, like for example, lightning, fire, and water. As the water one would basically start spewing out, concentrated hot water, as Bell would basically, get out of the way, and seeing that the water is basically covering the rock, and is now basically, freaking melted for some odd reason, which Bell would think, are you sure that's water or is it acid? As you would see the fireball coming towards him, as Bell would say this, oh no you're not, as you would basically slice the fireball in half with his sword. After doing that, he would see the, electricity coming towards him again, and realize that he's, about to get, struck upon. As Bell would say this, oh god, as he would basically, jump away, nearly jump away, because he would see that the rock that he was standing behind him, well, it was completely obliterated. After seeing this, Bell would say, what the as Bell would basically look towards, the large-ass Hydra still alive, as Bell would say this. Alright then. As Bell would basically grab his, his Kodachi, or, Odachi, or, I kind of forgotten the small, what do you actually call a small, katana, as he would basically grab it, as he would basically start to charge towards it, basically clashing it with, Bell would basically start clashing it with his, Kodachi or whatever, with its claws. Its claws almost resemble metal, as Bell would still keep fighting it, as the monster would still be screaming at him and shooting out several blasts of elements, like for example the, fire, things of that nature. So, after a while of fighting it, we currently see somebody watching him. More specifically, 3. In this case, Otar and 2 random, not Loki, I meant, Freya familia members, as one of them would say this. Do we seriously need to fight him? I mean, he's basically fighting that thing, and technically that thing is a literal floor boss, he would basically say, as Otar would say this. It is the order of Lady Freya, and we will not disobey her. As one of them would say this. Oh, come on! I mean, seriously, do we really want to fight this guy? As one of them would say this. Yeah, I agree with this guy. I mean, I agree with him. Like, who the hell do you... Like, how? As one of them would say this, specifically, Otar. It is the order of Lady Freya. And if you don't want to listen, then... You're nothing more than traitors, he would basically say with an angry glare. As he would say this, specifically the one that spoke against him. Sure, I guess we could take him. As one of them would say this. Yeah, I guess so, as he would say this. Good. Now, in my order, if he defeats this monster, we can defeat him. After all, he's sort of weakened. As one of them would think, yeah, sort of. He would basically roll his eyes, as they would still be watching him basically fighting the Hydra. So, currently with Bell. Bell is still fighting with the Hydra, as Bell would bring up his katana as he would start loading up the ult of Genji, as he would summon in the green dragon, basically charging towards the Hydra. The Hydra's head would basically explode from the blast, as the 2 other heads that are still remaining would start shooting out fire and electricity. After seeing this, Bell would basically jump out of the way as he would slice, one of the arms, or I guess you can say legs, of the Hydra. The Hydra would scream out in pain, as the Hydra would basically glare at Bell, as it would start charging up a shot, mixing both the electricity and also the fire, creating plasma. As the blast would charge towards Bell, as Bell would say this. Guess I'll just have to use this. As he would basically charge up, his bow. But instead, the bow would start to glow green and also blue, as he would basically scream out, just a Japanese phrase, like for example, take this or something of that sort. So, he would basically shoot out the bow as two large dragons, specifically one that's blue and the other one green, basically started charging forward as it combines together to create a large ass blue and green dragon that basically destroys the plasma ball. Which currently with Ultar and the random, Freya Familia members, they were impressed. As one of them would say this. Yep, I definitely don't want to fight him. As one of them would say, yeah, agreed, but unfortunately, if we do disobey, Freya's gonna be pissed off at us and you probably know what will happen. As one of them would say this. That damn curse, he would basically say. As Ultar would say this. Don't slander our mistress. As one of them would say this. Hi! He would be, both of them would basically salute. As currently with Belle would basically see the last of the head basically destroyed. Basically by, Belle basically slicing it off. After doing this, Belle would say, well, that was easy. He would basically, grab his sword and basically wipes up all the blood from it. After doing that, he would basically start to go back to where he came. But he would hear a few sounds of people dropping from the ground. Dropping from the sky, as he would look towards and sees the two Freya Familia members and Ultar. As Ultar would say this. Belle Colonel. As Belle would say this. Yeah? What? As he would say this. We want you to come with us. Our master, our goddess, Freya wants to talk with you. As Ultar would say this, as Belle would say this. Sorry, I'm not really interested. And besides, I need to talk to Loki about this. As when Belle is about to leave, Ultar would basically grab him by the arm as he would say this. That is not a question or a request. It's a demand. He would basically say, as Belle would say this. You really think that you can actually try and fight me? How arrogant are you? After Belle says that, Belle would basically kick him right in the nut. As, Ultar would basically wince in a little bit of pain as he would basically drop to the ground. As Belle would say this. Sorry, but I ain't that, honorable, I guess you could say. As he would basically grab his bow and would basically start, firing arrow after arrow. Thankfully, Ultar would basically grab his sword and would basically slice the arrows apart. As the two, Freya Familia members, specifically that, their specific classes are basically like mages. So they would start shooting out fireballs and electric balls. As when Belle saw this, Belle would basically grab his, kodachi and katana and would start slicing these, balls apart. Not that way. As Belle would basically see, Ultar basically charging at him with his sword, as Belle would basically block it with his own. As Belle would say this. That's all you got? As Ultar would say this. Impressive. But, as Ultar would basically start to increase his strength with his spell and his skill, as Belle would say this. Ugh, damn, you're strong. As you would say this. Likewise. As you would basically gets ready his other sword and gets ready to basically plunge into Belle's side. Belle would basically jump out of the way as Belle would basically say this. Alright, guess I'll just have to use this then. As you would basically start creating the, two blue twin dragons that would basically burst out of his bow using, Hanzo's ult. As Ultar would basically take the brunt of the attack, but the two other Freya Familia members, well, they're basically blasting off again like Team Rocket. So, Ultar was the only one left, as Belle would say this. Mind telling me who sent you here? Oh wait, yeah, it's that Freya girl, right? As he would say this. Yes, and she wants to talk with you. And if you don't comply, then I'll just have to take you by force. As Belle would say this. Sorry, but I'm not really committed with anybody else. Besides Loki, of course. As Belle would basically, gets ready his sword, as he would say this. So I'm not really interested in the thought that you call your goddess. As after Ultar hears that, he would say, That's blasphemous! he would basically scream out as he would basically charges towards Belle, as he would say this, "For your blasphemy, you will die!" After screaming that, as Belle would say this, I thought she said that you couldn't kill me." As when Otaro hears that, Belle would basically, took that time by using his, bow to basically, distract him, as he would basically fire the bow, or at least the arrow, and basically shoot him right in the eye, causing him to basically wince out in pain, getting a large scar, as you'd say, "Why, you little," as Belle would say this, "Sorry, but I had to go now." As he would basically jump away, basically going at lightning fast speeds, as Otaro would try to follow him, as you would see his two other members, currently limping, as one of them would say this, "Otaro, where's the medic? Where's our potions?" As one of them would say this, "Yeah, I told you we shouldn't fight him." As Otaro would say this, "You absolute cowards. You disgrace." As he would basically glare at both of them, as he would say this, "Here." He would basically grab a bottle, as he would basically give them both to, give it to them. Specifically, the two Loki, not Loki, I meant Freya Familia members. After doing that, they would basically start to drink the red concoction. After doing that, they would basically start to get healed. After doing that, he would say this, specifically Otar, "Next time, Beryl Cornell, we will get you and bring you to our master Freya." As when he hears this, specifically, a Loki, not Loki, I meant Freya Familia member, the one that basically got his ass kicked, he would say, "Yeah, I doubt it." He would basically think in his mind. So, currently with Belle. Belle is basically, back, at the guild, as he would receive his payment. After doing that, he would basically start to, go home, not before he goes to, to the Loki Familia household. After arriving there, he would see, Loki still, dealing with paperwork. As Bo would say this, "So, how's it going, my lovely little redhead?" He would basically say, as she would say this, "Paperwork, I hate it," she would basically say, as Bo would say this, "I guess so. So, Loki, I sort of had this encounter with a Freya Familia member." After hearing this, she would say, "Why? Is there something wrong?" As Belle would explain the whole thing about, Otar telling him that their, goddess Freya wants to talk with him. And after hearing that, she would say, "Don't tell me she's gotten interested in you. Or at least gotten interested in you." As Belle would say this, "So she kinda likes me?" That seems so," he would basically think in his mind. As she would say this, "Yeah. It seems that Freya seems to be taking a liking to you. I hope she's not spying on us." As Belle would say this, "Yeah." As she would say, "Actually." As she would basically grab a piece of paper that resembles some sort of tag, almost like, a food, I think it was called Fujitsu, or am I wrong? It's basically like a type of Fujitsu, I meant. It's basically from Naruto, basically. So, after getting this tag, she would basically throw it onto the ground, as, mana would basically start, flow around the area, as the doors would close, as a weird looking barrier would be, activated, as she would say this. "No, any magical spying or any physical spying is not going to be allowed here, in this area specifically. So you're able to basically talk without getting noticed by, Freya and her mystic eyes." As Belle would say this, "Thanks. So, this Freya girl, why does she want me exactly?" As she would say this, "I'm guessing she was pretty jealous about me. And maybe because of maybe because of your power." As Belle would say this, "I can definitely believe that," he would basically think in his mind. As she would say this, "Yeah, and anything that she takes a liking to, she will pursue that forever. No matter what, she will get it. And I just hope she wouldn't get you, after all. You're my little, my lovely little silver bunny," she would basically say, as he would say this. "And you're my lovely little redhead," he would basically say, as she would say this. "Anyway, if any other Freya Familia member tries to get you, try and contact me with this. After, grabbing this thing, which was some sort of like box, Asba would say this, what should I do? As she would say, open it, and then it would alert me. Asba would, after hearing this, he would say, sure, Freya. Not Freya, I meant Loki. As she would say, good, now, you may leave, my lovely little bunny. She would basically say, Asba would say this, alright, bye Loki. As after waving her goodbye, he would basically start to leave, going back home to his apartment. So, when he was about to leave to go to his apartment, he would see a few people, specifically members that almost, like several people basically wearing armor, as one of them would say this. Hey, are you Belle Cornell, perhaps? As Belle would say this. Yeah, so. As one of them would say this. We're here for you. Apparently our mistress, Lady Freya, wants you. As Belle would say this. Trust me, I won't be going with you. As Belle would basically open the case, as it would alert, Loki. After doing this, Belle would say this. So, what do you want? As one of them would say this. Come to us, come to us quietly, and we'll not, hurt anybody. Anybody that you care about, to be more specific. As Belle would say this. So you're trying to threaten me? As one of them would say this. Yeah, obviously. Our mistress, not mistress, Loki, I meant, our mistress, Freya, wants you. And if you don't comply, then. As he would basically bring up a spear, as Belle would say this. We'll just have to destroy you. And bring you there, piece by piece. As Belle would say this. But before he can say anything else, he felt something sharp on his neck. As Belle would fall to the ground, as he would say, what happened? As one of them would say this, nighty night, Mr. Charming, he would basically say, as Belle would fully be knocked out. Currently at the Loki Familia. The Loki Familia still pretty much quiet, as, Loki would feel the detection from the little box. As she would basically, call upon her, most powerful members, specifically the main Loki Familia, as they would basically come in, and one of them would say, Loki, what is it? Said, Finn. As she would say, I guess Freya's taken her move to try and capture Belle. As all of them would gasp. As, currently with, with a certain, bet, he would say, so why are we going to save him exactly? As, Loki would glare at him, as, he would say, fine. So where is he? As she would say, I think he's near his home. After saying this, all of them would basically start to move out to go towards where, Belle's apartment is. So, after they arrived there, they would see nobody there. But only the box that, Loki gave to him. As Finn would say this. I'm guessing they already captured him. As one of them would say this. Well, shit, said Bet. As, Eyes would say this. I couldn't save him. She would basically say, and I couldn't even get a final battle in. She would basically say, with a bit of tears coming from her eyes. As currently with, a certain, Tione, she's basically crying. Basically, mostly because she couldn't get her way with, Belle. I mean, makes sense, after all, she is an Amazoness. So, yeah. So, after getting back to, to the Loki Familia, and basically reporting this to Loki, let's just say, Loki was not freaking happy. So, yeah. So, as Loki would say this, alright. She would basically, slam her fist onto the table or her desk, as everybody would start to flinch, as she would say this. I guess it's time for us to start a war. A war game, to be more specific, with the Freya Familia, she would say, as everybody would gasp. After hearing this, one of them would say this. Are you sure? As, she would say, I'm sure. Anybody that dares threaten and steal away my Belcoon will pay, she would basically say with an angry tone. So, yeah. After saying this, we're gonna be leaving this episode right off here. Sorry. So yeah, I'm gonna be leaving this episode right off here, and so I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!